Alright, today we are going to learn more about parallel lines cut by a transversal and those special angle pairs. So the objective, I will prove theorems about parallel lines and use properties of parallel lines to find angle measures. So if you look at the next slide, if I know that two lines are parallel, remember we can show parallel lines by these arrows on each line. So if two lines are parallel, then corresponding angles are congruent. Hopefully we remember congruent means that they are the same measure. Remember the symbol? Congruent, same measure. So if I'm looking here, what are my corresponding angles? Angle 1, remember, same side of the transversal in the same position. So angle 1 would be congruent with angle 5. Angle 3 would be congruent with angle 7. Angle 2 would be congruent with angle 6. And angle 4 would be congruent with angle 8. So if you have two parallel lines, same side exterior angles will be supplementary. So what is same side exterior? So they're on the same side of the transversal, but on the outside of the parallel lines. So that would be angle 1. So I know, remember, supplementary means that they together equal 180 degrees. So angle 1 and angle 7 would equal 180. The measure of angle, what would be my other same side exterior? Well, that would be 2 and 8. So you know that those angles combined will equal 180 degrees. All right, looking at the next slide. If two angles are alternate interior, remember the alternate interior angles are the angles in between the parallel lines. So in this one, I know that these angles are my alternate interior angles. So if the lines are parallel, which I know they are based on these arrows, the alternate interior angles are congruent. So angle 3 would be congruent with, well, look at where 3 is. What's on the opposite side of the line? 6. So then angle 4 would be congruent with angle 5. Alright, the next one says if two lines are parallel, then same side interior angles are supplementary. So what's on the same side of the line but interior? So again, we're talking interior angles. So we're saying these angles right here. So this is different than the ones up here because up here was alternate interior. Here it's same side. Supplementary means 180 degrees. So I know these angles 3 and 5. If I added them together, they would equal 180. What would be my other set of same side interior? 4 and 6. So together those angles would equal 180 degrees as well. Okay, look at this picture. So I'm given that this angle right here is 65 degrees, and I need to find all the other measures of those indicated angles. So I need to find the measure of angle 6, 7, 8, and 9. Well, take a look. What's the relationship between angle 8 and 65 degrees? Well, hopefully you're thinking that those are corresponding angles. So since corresponding angles are congruent, this will be 65 degrees. Look at angle 8. Is there a relationship between angle 8 and angle 6? Well, do you see how they're on opposite sides of my transversal and they're exterior angles? So what do I know about alternate exterior angles? Add this into your notes. They are congruent when the lines are parallel. So if this is 65 degrees, this would be 65 degrees. How would I get angles 7 and 9? Well, looking at 6 and 9, aren't these same side exterior? And didn't we learn that same side exterior angles add up to 180? So I know that 65 degrees plus angle 9, they're going to equal 180. So I can subtract 65 degrees from both sides. So what's the measure of angle 9? $115. Well, if this is 115, how could I figure out angle 7? All right, angle 7. Aren't angles 6 and 7 a linear pair? So again, together, those two will equal, that's 65 degrees, plus the measure of angle 7 would equal 180. So same thing, I would subtract 65. So that missing angle 7 would be 115 degrees. Alright, I want to find the measure of each indicated angle. So here it looks like I'm given that this angle is 120 degrees. I can really start with any of these missing angles. I'm just going to choose to start with angle 1. So what do I know about that angle 1 and the 120? What type of angles are those? These are same side interior. Well, what we learned before about same side interior angles is that they are supplementary. They equal 180 degrees. So let's think. If this is 120, I know together angle 1 and at 120 degrees equals 180. What would be the measure of angle 1? 60. Well, if 1 is 60, what would be angle 4? Well, angle 1 and 4 are alternate interior, which means that they are congruent. So if the measure of angle 1 is 60 degrees, the measure of angle 4 is the same. Well, what's the relationship between this 120 degrees and this angle 3? Well, look, I circled them both in this black marker. So 120 and 3, they're on opposite sides of the transversal, so they're alternate interior. So I know that the measure of angle 3 is going to be congruent because alternate interior angles are congruent. How the heck am I going to get angle 3? Well, okay, let's think about this. What's the relationship between angle 2 and angle 3? Well, an angle 2 and angle 3 are vertical. So what would be the measure of angle 2? It would be the same as 3, so it would be 120 degrees. So in summary, angle 2 is 120. Angle 3 is 120. Angle 4 is 60. Take a look. Aren't these angles that are a linear pair right next to each other? Isn't 120 plus 60 180? Isn't 120 plus 60 180? So that's how I know I did it correctly. Alright, we want to find the measure of all the missing angles. So if I'm given that this angle is 110, which other angles would be 110? Well, think. Corresponding angles would be congruent. Alternate interior angles would be congruent. alternate exterior angles will be congruent. So if I look here, if this is 110, I know that this angle right here would be 110 because those are corresponding angles. Well, if this is 110, wouldn't this also be 110 because these are vertical angles? This angle and this angle? Alright, well if this is 110, this would have to be 110 because look at these angles. This angle and this angle, they are corresponding. Are there any other angles that are 110 degrees? Well, no. So now I have to think, how would I get the other angles? Well, if you look at this picture, which angles would be same side interior? Wouldn't I know that this angle here and this angle here are same side interior? Well, what do we know about same side interior angles? Same side interior angles, those are the ones that equal 180. So together I know that this angle, this 110, and this angle equal 180. So if this is 110, well, what's 180 minus 110? 70 degrees. So I know that this angle, this missing angle, would be 70 degrees. What other angles would be 70? Well, isn't this angle here? And this angle here? Aren't those alternate interior? So this would be also be 70 degrees. Isn't this angle and this angle vertical? So those would be 70 degrees. And then take a look. If this is 70 degrees, again, I have another vertical angle, so that would be 70 degrees. So do you see how if I'm given one angle measure, I can find the other, and it's always going to be the two angle, it's going to be two of the same measures. Like here it's 110 and 70. It will always be like that. Okay, if AB is parallel, okay, so I'm going to draw an arrow on here, is parallel to CD, and DE is parallel to FG. Alright, take a look. I'm given 100 degrees here. What's the relationship between this angle 1 and the 100 degrees? Hopefully you're thinking they're on the same side of this line. They're on the same side of the line. Are these interior or exterior angles? Well, they're inside. So if they're inside angles, you know that these are same side interior. You know together 100 degrees plus that unknown angle would equal 180 because these are same side interior. So what would angle 1 equal? Well, if I subtract, here I get the measure of angle 1 would equal 80 degrees. Is there a relationship between angle 1, let me circle that in green, and angle 3? Look at the lines. Aren't they on the same position and on the same side of the line? So hopefully you're thinking to yourself that these are corresponding angles. Well, so if the measure of angle 1 is 80 degrees, the measure of angle 3 would be the same because corresponding angles are congruent. Alright, looking at this, is there a relationship between angle 2 and any other angle? Oh, this is interesting. Since I have two sets of parallel lines, look at angle 2 and this original 100-degree angle. Looking at the parallel lines, so I'm talking about DE and FG. What would be the relationship between 2 and 100 degrees? Hopefully you're thinking that angle 2 and the 100 degrees, they're on opposite sides of the line, and they're inside, they're in between the parallel lines. So if I'm looking, they are alternate interior angles. So angle 2 would equal 100 degrees because alternate interior angles are congruent. All right, be ready to ask questions tomorrow.